Hello, and welcome to my video for At Any Cost, Metz 1870. I just finished the introductory campaign, one of the short scenarios, kind of a learning scenario. The game itself actually covers the battles of Mars-la-Tour and Gravelotte, but there's 6 different scenarios you can play. There's 2 shorter battle scenarios and 2 full-length battle scenarios, and then there's 2 campaign, like multi-day campaign. In fact, the longest one I think gets up to like 72 turns. It covers like from August 16th up to like August 18th, I believe. So, like I said, I played the first scenario, and I was playing as the Prussians in the light gray color, whereas the French forces are in the darker blue color, and the French scored a minor victory, so I lost. Figure I'll do a little bit of a recap, kind of what happened, and then I might actually cut to a video of me explaining maybe some of the game systems and stuff. Personally, I really am impressed with the game. This has kind of currently became one of my favorite games after just learning it. I love the activation system. It's the blind swords system. It's a chit pull activation system. And it makes definitely for some really intense battles. So, the objective in this for the French is to control both hexes of Mars-la-Tour. They only controlled 1 hex. And then for a minor victory, they have to control, under here, Vionville. They were able to control that for the minor victory. Then for a grand victory, they have to control Tronville as well, but I was able to hold that. If I look back on what I probably did wrong tactically, I probably was a little too aggressive as the Prussians. Their style lends themselves to aggressiveness, and honestly, it was working really good for a while until it stopped working. But units were getting battle-worn and running out of ammo and stuff, and I think if I would have paused and tried to have them regroup a little bit, maybe then I could have countered a little better. But the French definitely did kind of have me outnumbered and outgunned. I'll get into a little more of some of the differences between each side and their tactics. You know, the French are a little more defensive base, whereas the Prussians are a little more aggressive. Also, the French have better rifles, and that definitely comes into play. At this point, they were using the Chassepot rifle, which had like twice the range of the outdated Dreyse needle guns that the Prussians were using. But the Prussians do have an advantage in close combat, and also the Prussians do have the artillery advantage. They have the Krupp breech-loading steel artillery pieces, and they have percussive shells with like contact detonated fuses. So instead of just blowing up randomly, when it hits the target, it blows up. So yeah, there's and a lot of that is there's actually a system in game to help simulate some of those differences and details and stuff. So all in all, like I said, it's a great game. I really am enjoying it, and a beautiful map too. Here, let me pull it out. And I was only using this corner of the map for this particular scenario, but it extends all the way over here to some of the other villages and towns. Ravine up here, and yep. So it's definitely a very beautiful map. And unit counters, beautiful unit counters. I love that. Take a look at the French unit there. Very clear, easy to read. I like it that they're the larger, like 5/8 inch counters instead of the smaller counters that some games use. But yeah, honestly, I'm not going to turn this video into a review because I guess there's enough. But I can say go buy it because it's a great game and it's usually available at a great price. So, like I said, rather than turn this into a review, I'm probably going to make this more of a little bit of an instructional video. I might do like a bit of a tutorial. I'll try to keep it kind of short, but the system is very unique, so I want to maybe show like how an activation works. I'll just set up my own demonstration thing, and probably after that I am going to play one of the longer campaigns, possibly even one of the multi-day campaigns. Kind of interested to do that because of like the nighttime phases and some of the extra stuff that comes into play. Anyway, yeah, we'll probably stop here for a second and I will set up a little sort of a tutorial thing to help explain the system. I'll be back in a minute. Hello and welcome back. As you can see, I've set up a little demonstration here. I just kind of randomly grabbed a couple units from each side. I got the French 2nd Corps here, led by Frossard, against Manstein's 9th Corps with the Prussians. And I'll get into maybe how like an activation works. But first I need to probably do a little description on the counters themselves. First of all, you have your, well, of course, the unit, what corps it belongs to. It's color-coded, matches the HQ. And then it'll be the division name, brigade name, and information about the unit. First of all, this number here on this particular unit is an 8. That is the TCR, stands for Tactical Cohesion Rating. It's just kind of an overall measure of spirit and fighting effectiveness, and you'll see how that comes into play later. This next number here is the unit strength points. That represents just how many men are in the unit, and which like tables you roll on and stuff. And then to the right here you have its movement allowance. This unit has 4 movement points. As you notice, the Prussian units all seem to have higher TCRs for the most part, and usually higher movement ratings for the most part. Now over on the headquarters units, you have the posture, which is here. It's in aggressive posture right now. There'll be a D on the other side for defensive. And then this is its command rating. Now with the French units, the headquarters, usually the defensive side has a higher command rating than the aggressive side. And the opposite is true for the Prussians. As you can see, they have a 3 on their defensive side, and there is a 4 on their aggressive side. So, yeah, like I said, that affects that. Now, there's different things you can do under the different stances. Like you can't rally units if you're under aggressive stance. You can't build earthworks. But if you're in defensive stance, you can't engage and move adjacent to enemies. You can still do, ranged fire and such. But there's a list of kind of limitations for each stance. And when you start your activation for a particular corps, you choose which stance you want. And then over here we have the artillery units. That's the same. That's the strength points, the movement points, and then it's TCR. And actually you'll notice under here, attached to here, the French's secret weapon. They have these mitrailleuse units. There's an early form of machine gun, actually. And they have to remain attached to their particular artillery unit as instructed in the campaign. They move with it, they retreat with it, they're just literally attached. They do fire separately, but it's based on the French tactic at the time. They didn't really know how to use them. They just assigned them to an artillery battery and probably was not the most effective use of it, but it was still a potent weapon. The other type of unit we have over here is cavalry. And of course, then we have an artillery unit. If you notice, there's a little horse head here, or it looks like a horse head. That means it's a horse artillery unit. That means that the entire crew, instead of riding on the caissons, they usually have their own horses and they're able to move and deploy and redeploy faster. So the special ability with that is you can fire at half your strength points and then in the movement phase, move at half your movement points. So normally with artillery units, you mark them with an artillery fired if you do fire them, and then they are not allowed to move. But with the horse artillery units, you can fire them at half if you want. Place this little marker on it that says horse artillery, and it reminds you in the movement phase that you can make half movement with the unit. Okay. Get a little glare from my lamp there. Anyway, oh yeah, and then the artillery units, the cavalry units, I should explain that. It's the same thing, the TCR, the strength points, and the movement points. As you can see, it has a higher movement allowance because it is a cavalry unit. And then you will notice that green circle. That's an indicator meaning it is light cavalry. I think blue is medium, and then of course like red is heavy. And they each have their own effects based on that. If they do a charge, they get a higher modifier and stuff, the heavier the unit is. So anyway, I think that's enough for now to explain. I think I will get started. As I said before, it is, let's get Wrangle over here. We'll put Wrangle right there. Like I said, this is not any sort of historical setup or anything. It's just merely a way for me to demonstrate. As I said before, it is a chit pull system. So you have a cup with all your activation chits, and there's also some random events that can be drawn to, command events. I can get into some of those later. But they offer different modifiers and different things that can happen. But then, of course, you have your unit chits. So let's just say that I drew the Frossard marker, so the French Second Corps activates. So first of all, what I would do is I would select a side for the, for the overall attitude of the headquarters. So in this case, since they're going to make kind of an attack, I will have them switch to their, stay on their aggressive side. And then you check for in-command units. So any units that are over 3 hexes away are considered out of command. But if they're adjacent to a unit that is in command, you count it from there. So 1, 2, he's in command. So the next farthest unit would count it from here. 1, 2, 3, 4. A little straggler up here, so he is out of command. So you put one of these out of command chits on there, and they activate separately. And there's a bunch of random things that can happen with those. It just simulates the unit not being under control of the leader. So they might charge into battle, they might retreat, they might freeze up. There's a lot of stuff that can happen. So we'll mark him. I purposely set him up out of action so he would be out of command. Now, incidentally, if this was on its defensive side, it's a 4, so it would be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, so he would be in command. So you got to keep that in mind when you're choosing which attitude to set your HQ at. Anyway, so we start with the fire combat, which is ranged combat. So let's just use maybe the this unit right here, the Bataille. Sorry, not real good with the French names. But he will attack the Prince Louis unit. And first of all, you count the hexes. He is 1, 2 hexes away. So you go over here to the range, and you see these are the number of hexes and what's considered effective and extended range. And then, of course, if you're 1 hex away for artillery, use canister shot. So that actually adds a 50% modifier to your strength points. So it is French infantry. Effective range is 1 and 2 hexes. That's a chassepot rifle for you. So it is an effective range, so he is able to use his full amount. He would only use half his strength points if he rounded down, if he was at extended range, so if he was 3 spaces away. Okay, so we start at the 5 column, and then this is where you decide your modifiers. If it is French infantry or a French mitrailleuse unit, it gets 1 column shift left, or to the right, I mean, and then there's, terrain modifiers and such. So the only modifier in this particular case would be the 1 column shift to the right for being a French unit. So we roll on the 6 and 7 table. And as you can see, there's your dice roll. Now you actually roll 2 10-sided dice with this system. The red dice is your attack dice. The white dice you use for the morale check, which I'll get into that. Let's just see what we roll first of all. It is a 1 and a 0, so we go up. Well, actually the 0 is a 10. I forgot. So we're on the 6-7. It's NE. That's no effect. So they whiffed it. If they would have rolled a 2 even, it would have been a morale test. But we don't do that because they missed it. I guess we are going to now have the artillery fire on here so we can demonstrate that. That's 1, 2, 3 hexes away. So you go over to the French artillery, and 3 hexes is within the effective range right there. As you can see, the Prussian artillery has a lot further range. So it's attacking the same unit. There's no modifiers of any kind. So it has a strength point of 3, so it rolls on the 3 table. And we will... and that is a 2 and 2, and that is a double. So that actually is a good thing for my explanation, because that brings up another point. If you ever roll doubles, you take a ammunition hit. It means you're running short on ammo. So this gets attached to the unit until you resupply it. You will always shift 2 spots to the left on the column whenever you do fire combat. If you take another ammo hit, you flip it over and you're on rationed ammo, and that's 4 hits to the left, and that's pretty bad. So I will attach it to him. But the mitrailleuse unit is separate, his ammo is separate, so he has an attack of 4. So he's already fired. I'm not going to mark him with the fired chit. Normally you would maybe do that if you needed help remembering. But we have the mitrailleuse unit under him is firing, and that is 1, 2, 3 squares, or 3 hexes away, not squares. And it is at extended range. So that means it has half of its strength points. So it's a 4, so it gets halved to a 2, if you follow me. So it starts on the 2 table. But since it is a mitrailleuse unit, it shifts over to the 3. Okay, so we rolled an 8 and a 3. So we're on the 3 column. So we go down here to an 8. It's a morale test +1. So this white dice then becomes your morale dice. You add +1, so that is a 4. And then you compare it to the TCR of the defending unit. That is a 7. So it is 3 less. So we go to the morale test table. If it is equal or 3 less, it takes 1 morale. So it was definitely over, so there is no effect. But let's just say that this was a 7, and then it's +1 from the modifier, so that would be an 8. It would be 1 more than its TCR, so it would take 1 morale hit, and you would use one of these morale markers. So, another swing and a miss for the French. Let's have, it was the Lapicette. Oh no, he already fired. So, yeah, I guess let me just demonstrate. Well, actually, let me just say for once that he did a morale hit, just so you can see what that is. That unit then becomes shaken. So it's, while that marker's on there, its strength point is -1, so that 5 becomes a 4, and its TCR is -1, so that 7 in the box there becomes a 6. So we'll say we'll give a bogey to the French artillery here. Then we enter the movement phase. So for the movement phase, you can move up to your value. There's a lot of little things such as terrain, but this is open terrain, so it's 1 per hex. So we're going to just move him up there adjacent. That's considered engaged. It doesn't mean you have to attack or anything, just the term, it means you are engaged. Let's just move him, or we'll move him. Actually, let's move him right there so I can demonstrate reaction fire. If you enter an adjacent hex, any units there can reaction fire. So he is a 6, so you follow the same procedure. He's a 6 on here, so we roll on the 6-7 table. He has no other modifiers. So that is a 7 and a 2. So we are on there. So that is a morale check +3. So you add 3 to this dice. That becomes a 5. And he has a 6. So it is not equal, so he does not take a hit. But that was very, very close for the French unit. And then at this point, you can choose which units you want to make an assault during the close combat phase. And you just aim the arrow at whatever hex you're attacking. And for the heck of it, we will put that, he'll attack the artillery. It's hard to run the camera and control that. Okay. So I will probably pause it here to keep the video from running too long. I don't want to bore people. But then I will get into how close combat works, and that's a pretty cool system. And then I will also maybe demonstrate the rally phase, and then we'll also see what happens to Mr. Out of Command guy there. Anyway, so thank you for watching, and I'll just see you in the next part. Thank you.